Anyone here today not familiar with the term IMSS? IMSS. Not familiar? Well, good, you're in the right place. You're in the right place for today. IMSS is Mexico's version of the Social Security system. Prior to 2023, it was a suggestion, a hope, a prayer from your workers. It wasn't mandatory, okay? Our workers came to us, we have a housekeeper and we have a gardener, and they came to us about 6 years ago and asked, pretty please, would you provide us with medical insurance and other benefits, okay? It was optional for us, but I'll tell you, my life would not be the same without those two people. Okay, so we thought, my God, of course we're going to do it. It's a small amount of money, and they deserve it. They deserve it. So we signed them up 6 years ago. But as of January of last year, 2023, it switched from being optional to being mandatory. It is now went from suggestion to Mexican law. And you will find a lot of people in this town that which will argue with you about whether they really have to do it or not. Shame on them. Okay, shame on them. So there's been a few changes since it came into effect last year on 2023. If you remember, in February, I think, of 2023, we had a couple of attorneys here, Anna and Mariana, from, where are they from? Pro-legal. They came in, they talked about the initiation of the program and so forth and so on. But on January of 2024, there were some significant changes. So I thought it's time to do a little bit of a review and to tell you what happened, because it caught me. I all of a sudden found my monthly rate went up, and I didn't understand why. And plus, my workers didn't understand that their benefits increased. That's a dual no-no, right? They should be conscious of the fact that now they're receiving more benefits from their employer. Okay. So anyway, we've invited Jessica and Mai. And Jessica Liston and Mai founded the IMS Assist about a year ago. IMS Assist is dedicated to helping fulfill the rights and benefits of domestic workers in Mexico. 95% of these workers are women. IMSS helps employers understand their obligations to their domestic employees. Jessica helps them navigate the registration process, which is not easy, and helps their domestic understand what their rights are here. So let's welcome Jessica and Mai, and let's learn about IMSS today. Jessica.
I'm going to turn myself a little bit. Is that okay? So, Mike, I understand Ron asked me to speak, and I know when Ron asked that, you also have to say yes. So we're really happy to be here to talk about IMSS Assist and what we've done over about the last 2 years, working with domestic employees, getting the rights that they're entitled to under the law. So, and I'm gonna, my partner Mai, who's over here, will be with me at the end. Yeah, it's a little, I don't get the first 2 feet on painting the barrels. Mai actually works every single day with employees on IMSS benefits. She's an IMSS benefits specialist. So she really works with the intricacies of what happens with the program. Our email is at the bottom. We found that that's the easiest way for us to communicate. I'll list it again at the end, but I just want to let you guys know that it'll be there, and if anyone has any further questions, we're happy to help. Okay. Whenever we start talking about IMSS benefits, it's really important, we feel, to acknowledge that there's a large difference between the cultural laws of the United States, of Canada, and Mexico. Why we feel that's important is that a lot of people, I think, have fear of this system, the Mexican bureaucracy. They have fear of change, and there's a lack of understanding. In Mexico, one of the constitutional rights is for people to have social benefits. It is in their constitution. It has been in the constitution for hundreds of years. In the US, we have rights to guns. Here, social rights are a really important system, and employees are, and their rights are sacred in this country. And so as we go forward, it's really important that we keep that in mind, because it's very different than what we're used to in the countries that we come from. Historically, domestic workers have been one workforce that have been excluded from the rights that have been entitled to every worker in Mexico. It's been considered an informal labor source. They don't have the same rights as other employees have. I'm going to read some statistics here. Domestic workers represent 11% of all working women in Mexico, and they're among the workers with the least amount of labor rights. 80% of women don't have medical insurance, 6 out of 10 don't have vacation, and almost half of them don't receive vacation bonuses. They're also among the worst paid female workers in the country. Every third of them receives less than the legally stipulated minimum wage. So what changed? An organization, and I call it CACEH, C-A-C-E-H. It is a support and training center for women for their labor rights, for their sexual rights, for their reproductive rights. This woman it would be your left, was fired from her employment after 58 years of service, and she was 82 years old. She never received vacation, she never received any sort of social benefits, she never received vacation pay, and she didn't receive her termination when she left. So she worked with this organization, CACEH, and they sued. They sued the IM system, they sued the employers, and after years of legalese, it was ruled unconstitutional not to include domestic workers in the IM system, and that it was particularly discriminatory to women because 95% of these workers are women. And so major reforms to the federal labor law and the Social Security law went into play as far back as 2018 to include domestic workers in these laws. I get terrible dry mouth when I talk, so excuse my water.
Yo era una niña de 14 años y yo quería superarme, quería estudiar, quería no limpiar casas, aunque hoy yo lucho porque sea valorado, porque es un trabajo importante para miles de mujeres.
Sí, nosotras como trabajadoras del hogar tenemos demasiados retos aún en la actualidad. La discriminación, como es el racismo, por ser trabajadoras del hogar.
Decidí comenzar con esta organización porque yo fui trabajadora del hogar a los 14 años. Y yo veía a los 14 años, de verdad, veía mucha discriminación, yo no tenía libertad en el trabajo, no tenía derechos. Y entonces dije, no puede ser este trabajo para tantas personas que viven de ella. Empezamos a capacitar y fueron creciendo el número de trabajadoras del hogar.
De manera personal, la verdad, para mí es como sentirme parte de algo. Y yo me sentía, pues, como nos hacen sentir menos. De formar parte de un grupo. Debemos darnos cuenta que ahí está el poder.
El logro más valioso para mí es que cambié las normas laborales para las trabajadoras. Y entonces emprendí esta lucha sin saber que en algún momento yo iba a lograr que hoy más de 2.4 millones de trabajadoras del hogar lograrían acceder a los derechos.
They're often living in dark little rooms in somebody's house. They're not paid overtime. So it's a pretty tough environment for domestic workers across this country. And so here in San Miguel, I know we've done things differently. I know our wages are extremely high. I know we care very much for the people that work with us in our house. It doesn't make all of this else go away. Right? That's why this is so important. This is why it was such a landmark decision for especially women in this country, okay? So the decree, which was, and I'll show you where it is for anybody that argues whether or not this actually is law, for the first time defined a domestic worker, and I'm gonna read to you what the direct translation is. This is important because we get a lot of questions about who qualifies as a domestic worker. Is my gardener a domestic worker? Is my cook? Is my driver? Is my valedor? Are these domestic workers? So the direct translation is those who in exchange for compensation carry out activities of maintenance, cleaning, assistance, or any other activity inherent to the home within an employment relationship in which the employer does not obtain any direct economic benefit. That last sentence is really important because when we talk about who is not a domestic worker, the formal sector would be people who work in hotels as cleaners. If you have an Airbnb that you're renting out and you have a cleaner come into, they are not being filed as a domestic worker. They should be being filed as a regular employee, okay, because it's an economic benefit. So these are people, and they've defined it either as one employer, they have one employer who lives in, one employer does not live in, or they have multiple employers that do not live in. We get the question all the time, my maid works for me 1 day a week for 6 hours. Is she a domestic worker? Do I have to do this? Yes. It clearly fits the definition. If they're coming into work, there's an expectation, there's a schedule, there's a salary, they are your domestic worker, all right? And we'll talk later about why that's important, that every single person does their piece, okay? Diego, can you click the yellow section up top, just really quick so we can see where it goes? It's gonna connect you to the internet. The DOF, and we'll talk a little bit about this, this is where all the legalese of Mexico are filed. Every day it's published. This is where laws, decrees, treaties, anything that happens is published in the DOF. Once it's published here, it's law, okay? And once it's published here, ignorance is no longer a legal excuse for not doing something, okay? So lawyers, anybody that works in bureaucracy in Mexico is reading the DOF every day. So I just wanted to show you that this is actually what went into effect on the 16th of November 2022, and the effective date was January 1st, 2023. Okay. In that, if you look at these rights right here, these are rights that every worker in Mexico is entitled to, okay, but domestic workers were not. Because of this decree, they now are entitled to have all of these rights, and we'll go over some of these specifically. I want to highlight the pink ones and have you remember that, because people without IMSS, and we'll talk about this, these are the responsibilities of the employer, okay? And most people don't know that. So every employee in Mexico is entitled to an employee contract. Period, without question, it's one of their legal rights. The employee's contracts outlines for them what their pay is, what their vacation is, what their termination is. And at the very least, it has to include their name, their address, where they go to work, what their wage is, what their hours are, if they're living in, what their food, what their housing is. Why this is important is that it's very common, and I know even a lot of us Americans or non-Mexicans do this, will say, you know what, I travel 6 months of the year, I'm only gonna have my domestic worker come on the 6 months that I'm here. That is not okay. This is the job in Mexico that they are entitled to. They're entitled to their work throughout the year. They can't hold 6 months for their employer. However, many employers want to do that. So the labor contract outlines for them the hours that they're expected to come into work. Okay. Holidays, vacation, and aguinaldo. Did you know that all workers are entitled to this? Last year, or 2022, at the end of 2022, vacation days increased as well. A lot of people don't know this. After the first year, right now it's 12 days, it used to be 6. They're entitled to 10 statutory holidays per year. So these are listed, we know what those holidays are, which means that they get paid without coming into work. If they do come into work, they're owed 3 times their salary. Okay? Mexico very much so respects time off. Family is a very important value here. So if we're gonna take that time away from them, it's expected that we pay for it. 15 days of Christmas bonus a year, that's considered the 13th month. I don't know if anybody knows that. So that's what it equals essentially is their salary, so that they have money to spend over the holidays, and it's paid before the 20th of every year. Vacation, we are required to pay vacation days, or our employees can take vacation days. I'm gonna talk about something quickly that will probably confuse you, but I think is important to talk about. These numbers right here are for full-time employees, all right? In domestic work, most of these employees, for us at least here, are part-time employees. So when we work with our clients, one of the things that we recommend, there's 2 ways of doing this, is either prorating the daily rate or prorating these days, right here. We think it's important to prorate the days because for me, my housekeeper's been with me many, many years. If she were to take 20 days off, that's almost 5 weeks of work, and she comes 3 days a week. And so that's a big deal. So we prorate the days, and I think that's kind of an important delineation. If they're actually taking the days, we're not only required to pay them for the day, but we're also required to give them a 25% premium. So the idea in this was set that when our employees take their vacation, they also have some money to spend on their vacation. So whether you're paying this at the end of the year or in real time, you have to add 25% of that daily salary every time you're paying that vacation day, okay? And that's part of the law. Termination. This is not an at-will country. This is an entitled-to-work country. So that means that it's very, very, very difficult. You can't just fire an employee in Mexico. Once they're with you, once they've been through the 30-day probationary period, they are with you. And the only way to terminate that relationship is for cause, and that means there's a list of they stole, they didn't show for work a certain number of days, violence, different type of things, and all that has to be documented. Or we have to pay them out, which is called a severance package, and it equals 90 days or 3 months of their salary. It equals 20 days of every year that they've worked for you. If they've been with you for more than 15 years, it's another 12 days on top of that, and then we owe them also the accrued vacation or Christmas bonus that we haven't paid, okay? A lot of people also say, I want to take my employee and move them from 18 hours to 12 hours. You can't do that in Mexico legally without going through this process. If you change the terms of your relationship down, we owe them a severance package, and then they have the option of whether they want to come back to work for you at lower hours. Does that make sense? In 2023, Social Security law provided these benefits for the employees. I like to look at this for a few minutes because this is much more in depth than any of us are used to coming from the US, maybe not Canada, but definitely from the US. as an IMSS benefit, you get sickness, you get paternity leave, you get maternity leave. There's child care benefits, so they have free child care on the days they work so that they can go to work. There's disability insurance that comes with it. There's workers' comp for the employer. There's life insurance. They're building for their retirement. They're building for a pension. So all of these benefits is something now these mostly women are entitled to that they did not have before. The reason why I highlighted these ones in pink is that if you have an employee working for you that you're not providing IMSS benefits for, it's against the law, number one. But number two, and prior to this being the law, we were required as employers to pay this. So if somebody was pregnant, I think is it 6 and 6? 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after is the maternity paternity benefit here. We as employers were required to pay that. Now, if they have IMSS benefit, the IMSS system pays that. Same thing for workers' compensation. If somebody was hurt in your home, you're required for those medical bills. You're required to pay for their salary while they're sick. So now IMSS covers all of these benefits for these workers. Because what was happening is these occurrences were happening and they weren't getting any of this. They weren't getting their maternity or paternity. And so now there's a system that protects their rights and gives them access to these type of benefits. Initially, and this is the housing benefit, info natif. I mess this word up all the time. I practiced it on Google this morning 1,000,000 times. We'll just call that the housing benefit. When this first came into play in January of 2023, this housing benefit was not included with the benefits that housekeepers received. This housing benefit has been with all other workers in Mexico, okay? So it was kind of a big deal when it wasn't included with the initial benefits that these domestic workers would receive. What this housing benefit is, it's another chunk of money, and after 5 years, it makes them eligible for low-interest home loans. They can renovate land, they can renovate houses, but it makes home ownership possible for a lot of citizens in this country. This year, one of the things that Ron referred to that we saw in about March was this was added to the IMSS benefit, and it's a 5% increase to the IMSS benefit. So now domestic workers are building their bank of home ownership, whatever they need for. If they don't use it, they have the ability to cash that out, okay? So they can cash that out at a later date, because some people already own their homes. That's one of the things that's happening right now is that we're brand new at this system for domestic workers. Imagine if these women had this when they were 22 years old. Some of them are now 44 or 50 years old, and it's hard to build a lifetime in a few years, but it's still better than nothing. It's still creating something, whereas now they're working till they're 80 years old or having to live with family or without any other options. Okay, so everybody wants to know what this will cost, okay? Your obligation of an employer, the simplest way I can say it, is about a week's salary plus 25%. So for example, if your housekeeper works 2 days a week and makes 500 pesos a day, so 1,000 a week, you can expect your monthly obligation to be about $1,250, okay? That's about the monthly obligation. If anybody later wants to see how all this breaks down, I have a slide, just ask the question at the end, and we can show you where all those dollars go and all the baskets and kind of how that breaks down. This is a busy slide, I know, but I think it's important that we talk about what's changing and what's happening. The housing benefit was something that was just recently added. You probably don't know this, and why would you? In Mexico, the public sector, people that don't have private health insurance, are either insured through ISSSTE, which is state workers, and those could be teachers, those could be people that work in the state governments, Pemex, which is a big oil corporation, and ISSFAM, which takes care of people that work for Sedena and Sedena. You wouldn't know this. The rest of the private sector that are in formal jobs, people that work at OXXO, people that work at the hotels, people that work at restaurants, are all insured under IMSS. This is not a new program. This has been in place since 1943. This is not new. It's just new for domestic workers, and it's new for us, okay? There was always another sector in healthcare and this is just healthcare, not social benefits, in Mexico. And these were for people who had nothing. These were for your domestic workers, independent contractors, people that didn't have any other form of insurance. And it was called Seguro Popular. Do you guys remember that? Okay. This was managed by the states. There was a lot of problems with Seguro Popular because there was not much oversight, so there was a lot of money being funneled in places where it shouldn't actually go. So INSABI was administered by the federal government with an idea of how to get rid of the problems that were in Seguro Popular. It wasn't extremely successful because they didn't have anything in place, so the new administration started IMSS Bienestar, okay? Now, what's happening with this government, domestic workers have access to IMSS. They've just now made it so that independent contractors can have access to IMSS. So they're slowly closing the gap of who needs this insurance. It's quickly closing. So that federal government started this IMSS Bienestar program, and it is meant to cover the gap of those people. It's federally operated. There are 32 states, including Mexico City, in Mexico. 24 of the states have jumped on board with this system. Guanajuato has not, okay? So that means that we have two systems right now here in San Miguel de Allende. It's still considered INSABI here, that's CAICES in the General Hospital, and we have an IMSS facility here. So most workers here are used to going to the public hospital or to CAICES, so this change is difficult for them. 2 months ago in April, the federal government literally woke up one day and said, we are no longer funding your healthcare workers in INSABI. So there were gonna be no nurses, no doctors, no anything in any of the system. They said, we have created this program to unite the healthcare and be able to have a universal system. And there are 8 states that won't do it. So of course, chaos, right? We have, I don't know how many nurses and doctors employed at these facilities. So they gave them a 3-month reprieve. We're in that right now. So I don't know what happens in the next quarter. We don't know what will happen with the change of, if there is a change of political parties. But the goal of the federal government right now is to have one system. And this is tagged with this. So inevitably, it's going that direction unless a new administration comes in. So this is gonna be our option. So for those of you who haven't, the writing is on the wall that it's coming. And so that's all I have to say about that. Challenges. There are challenges with this. Educating employees, let's start on this side. People are distrustful, especially this more vulnerable population of the government. They don't have a lot of government interaction. They never have. They don't believe that their pensions are going to get paid. They don't believe that they think the government's taking all the money. These are very real concerns with them. One of the things that my partner Mai does is she does Zoom calls with people and their employees if they want to have one of those, to actually really talk about the reality of the system, to talk about that it's been here for so long, and to talk about how it plays out so that they have a better understanding of education. Social Security number, that's an NSS number. I'd say about 75% of people we work with don't even have a Social Security number. So we spend a lot of time helping them get Social Security numbers because it's a bureaucratic process and some of these workers don't read, they don't write, so we help them get through that. Cost concerns, is there a cost to the employee? Yes, if you as employers want there to be. There are 3 funding sources for this program: the federal government, the employer, and the employee. In my house, I think actually I'll show you in a minute because I have a slide that'll go over that, so we'll leave that there. IMSS hospitals, this is a real concern here. We don't have a true IMSS hospital in San Miguel de Allende. If the 2 systems combined, we would, but right now we don't. So we have a big IMSS clinic on Aurora, and that's where people go for their health care. If something serious happens, they have to go to Celaya for a hospital. This is the way it is. People that have IMSS or have had IMSS here for a really long time, it's just normal for them. But our housekeepers, who either we've been paying for their doctor's bills or haven't had to do this, it's a big change. I had a woman say, my employee doesn't want IMSS because she doesn't want to go to the IMSS clinic. And I said, what is she doing now? And she said, well, I'm paying for everything. She can go to whatever doctor she wants, and I just pay for it. And my answer is, you can still do that. If they want to go to Pharmacy Aurora, they can still do that. But this is meant to be a system that takes care of them should they need it. Should there be catastrophic issues? Should they need long-term care, disability, anything like that? Real-world things that happen in lives. Because if they end up with cancer and can't work, I'm guessing that most of us aren't going to follow them for the next 40 years, right? So this will. Educating employers, this is not normal in the United States. Like, we don't pay for housekeepers in the United States. We don't pay for their benefits, or gardeners. And I don't know if Canada does. Any Canadians here? Okay. So whether that's common or not, I can't tell you how many people say, I don't want to do this because I'm on a pension. And it's my husband's favorite one. He always says, he's like, well, you're here because you're on a pension. You're retired because you're on a pension. This is what we're giving them. We're giving them a chance at their future, and it's their right? They think it's difficult. It is difficult. And because we're operating in another country where we don't understand always the language, and we certainly don't understand the bureaucracy. So it is difficult. It is. I'll be the first one to say, but it is important. It is the law. It takes time to do this. And as I had started this conversation out in SMA, I don't know that we live in the same world that a lot of these domestic workers do in the rest of the country. We've created kind of this safe bubble, but we've also created that. So it doesn't take away their legal right to have these benefits, okay? I mean, it's amazing what we've done here, and I think it's like all of the people that come in and just put their arms out, and it's all with really good intentions, but there is another piece to this that is beyond us. This is the only frequently asked question that I want to talk about, because this is something that we get all the time and I think is so important. And especially goes to my employee only works with me 1 day a week, or somebody goes to, why am I paying? Why is Ron paying? Why is Robin paying? Why are we triple paying? All right, this program has to be funded. All right, and a dollar amount that this program is funded, a minimum wage in Mexico is 267-ish pesos a day, which is about 8,000 pesos a month. Let that sink in, $400 a month. If somebody is a full-time employee, they're guaranteed full-time IMSS benefits, all right? Part-time employees need the combination of their employers to be able to get up to that threshold of full-time benefits. A lot of people think, hey, I'm paying 40 pesos a month into IMSS, my employee gets full-time benefits. It would go broke in no time at that. It has to be funded. And the way this pays out, in this example, all 3 employers are contributing. So this employee is making about 11,700 pesos a month. They are fully funded. They can have childcare 7 days a week. They can go to the clinic whenever they want. If they're disabled, they'll have their wage paid every day. So all of these things come in. If Jane Jones decides not to pay, all right, this employee is now only making $6,500 a month. They are no longer considered a full-time employee, and they no longer receive full-time benefits. So now they're only working, according to IMSS, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So they only have IMSS benefits Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So everybody's got to do their part for this to work. So here's our email address again. If anybody has any questions, we're here.
I think we're out of time, unfortunately. Okay. So please visit Jessica's website to ask questions. There's a lot of questions. It doesn't seem very complicated. I had a situation last week were on vacation pay, and she actually wanted to take vacation versus being paid in lieu, and it was a hard calculation. So thank you for coming, Jessica. This is an important talk, and
put this in. Yeah, we're going to put it in the chat as well. So thank you. A big round of applause. We're going to give them some of our fancy mugs. Thank you.
While they're doing that, I want to point out that Jessica Frick is a former Citizen of the Year. This is what kind of people we support in San Miguel. Thank you, Jessica.